Hello, everybody. I'm Sean Reynolds from Sportsnet, about to be joined by Ken Wiebe from Sportsnet. And have you ever had one of those parties where you invite a bunch of people to the party and no one shows up? It's kind of what Renny's feeling like right now with this episode of Kenny and Renny. I mean, usually Ken's enjoying his blue M&Ms in the waiting room right now. Mitch Peacock is going to be joining us, ladies and gentlemen. The effervescent Mitch Peacock, who we love having on the show, is going to jump on with us. And if I've been convincing enough, and let me tell you, Sean Reynolds can be a pretty convincing guy at times. Maybe, just maybe, we'll get Leah Hextall, who called the game here tonight, to join us. It's like we've had with Sammy the Scarf, like we've had with Harn Ryan Singh. We love to try and get the Sportsnet folks who called the game onto the show afterward to talk about what they saw. So if I pull this off, hey, let's see what we can do here. But going to have a number of people joining us here to talk about the game. And what are we thinking about the game, everybody? I know that let's start with this. The Winnipeg Jets, I've thought over the last couple of games, yeah, they lost those games. Yeah, they lost to the Vancouver Canucks. I know that really burnt a lot of people, made them a little bit upset. But it's one of those games where it's back-to-back, and they clearly spent a lot of energy on that Edmonton Oilers game. Savage here saying he thought it was a horrible game tonight, but have to forget about it and move on. If it keeps happening, we have a problem. I guess that's something to talk about. It's a three straight games that they've lost now, the Winnipeg Jets. We'll get into all that. But this was the first time I've heard in quite some time where Paul Maurice came out and said, you know what? There's a part of this game I didn't like. Specifically, he didn't like that third period. You kind of do get it, right? Because the Winnipeg Jets come out, it's 1-1 going into the third period. The game is either team's, but you could kind of feel that the game had turned in the Penguins' manner before that. I believe the stat I saw was at some point when the Penguins tied the game 1-1, the shots were 20-10. For the Winnipeg Jets, and I think they ended up being like 34-31. So the Jets outshot something like 24-11 shots as the game went on. That's not going to get it done typically against a team like the Pittsburgh Penguins and get you back into that game. Lots to talk about, though, when it comes to all of this. And hey, if there's someone we want to talk with about it, it's Ken Wiebe. So let's bring him into the show here, everybody. Ken, hop into the show here. There's our guy. How are you doing, my friend?
Oh, I'm excellent, Sean. Thank you. A little bit of scramble mode. Oh, you can't hear me?
I wonder if our audience is, but let's bring in Mitch Peacock.
Hang on, how about now?
His microphone is working, or if it may be me. I may not be hearing a lot of what's going on here, but there we go. I've got it, guys. Don't worry about it.
You got me now?
I do, and one after the other, like the dominoes falling. We get Ken Wiebe into the show and Mitch Peacock as well. Ken, you're going to stick around for just a little bit. And then you've got some traveling you have to do as we both try and make our way, both of us trying to get to Columbus. I'm taking a flight as normal. Ken's going to do the planes, trains, and automobiles travel trip down there. But
yes, it's for a good cause. It's for a good cause. We'll get into that in a minute.
It is. But first off, we just want to say, hey, Mitch, welcome back. Phyllis says it's great to see you, Mitch. And I love that you put on the Hockey Fights cancer tie. I've got a little bit of purple in here. I don't think I pulled it off as well as you did, but great to see you, Mitch. How are you doing tonight?
I'm doing great. How are you guys?
Phenomenal. Good stuff. We'll get into it. We're going to have an abbreviated version, like we said, because both Ken and I have to travel, which is why Mitch is coming in to do the heavy lifting. Let's be honest. That's what we'd want to do
here.
That's why
they bring me in.
But let's start
with
with
the only thing I was
going to
say is if you're going to abbreviate anything, make sure it's not my last name. That could get awkward.
Well, either way it could, I guess.
Yes,
yeah,
that's right.
Either syllable. Hey, I feel like
made for a tough
Family
elementary
show
school
here.
career.
Family show here.
I feel like you've used that one before, Mitch Peacock. Ken, we'll start off with you here, just because you're going to cut out at some point. Feel free to leave whenever you want. Drop the mic if you want to leave in dramatic fashion. But what are your takeaways from tonight?
Yeah, interesting, Sean. I would say that we've seen this recipe before. I think the Jets had a pretty decent start. I think the shots were 11-3 at one point and scored first. But I think Mitch has seen this a lot. The inability to push that game to 2-0 when the Jets had the lead proved to be very costly because the goaltender Tristan Jarry allowed his teammates some time to find their legs, and then the Jets, were unable to get the push, and then they gave up the equalizer. And obviously, Andrew Kopp didn't really want to get into it very much, but it looked like it was a play where it was John Marino's stick that caught Marcus Pettersson in the face and not Andrew Kopp's. But since that is not a reviewable play, they had to serve the minor. And although the Jets were able to kill off the minor, seconds later, the Penguins took the lead on the play. I think when Rodriguez found that was the other one. That was the Zucker goal, right? That came right after the power play. Yeah, the Zucker goal came right after the power play.
Right after the PK.
Sorry, yeah. So that was something where
I think that was, for me. Sorry to interrupt, but I think for me, two things. Your point, the failure to extend the lead in the first period when they carried the play. They not only outshot them dramatically, but they had the better high danger chances in the first period.
And
I thought
zone
Jerry
time
was excellent. And then I thought that was a really soft neutral zone check on the goal that tied it at 1 right after the PK. The team's been talking about how important the PK is. They get a penalty kill, they get a big save. It should have been a lift for them, and they weren't there to try and fight once they got through PK. That was too easy for Pittsburgh on the Zucker goal.
Hey, Ken, before you go too far, I just want to say, sometimes you got to shoot your shot. And that's what I did tonight when I asked Leah Hextall to come join our show. And every once in a while, we can pull it off. But I'm starting to notice, Kenny and Renny is becoming the place where the stars play after the game. I'm loving it. And that's the case tonight as we bring in Leah Hextall,
All right.
who did a phenomenal job tonight on the broadcast. And we're just so lucky to have Leah. I've been trying to get Ken to get you on the show for I don't know how long now, and he keeps putting me off.
Oh, yeah.
So I said, enough. I'm going to do it. I'm going to shoot my shot. We got you here. It's great to see you. How are you doing this evening?
So I can't hear you now. What went wrong?
You can't hear me? We can hear you.
I can hear you, yeah.
We can hear you, yeah.
What did I do? I could just hear you until I came on.
Well,
But maybe this gives Ken an opportunity to defend himself.
Well, technical difficulties are definitely part of the show, so this is par for the course for us.
I'm going to sit here and drink wine because I can't hear you guys.
A lot of people like the show better that way.
Don't worry, I'm working on it behind the scenes. Ken, did you need to defend yourself on this, or?
Oh, I mean, that's a pretty sad attempt by you, but
Whoa.
how did you get the number to ask her to come on?
I know. It's a good point.
Right. Okay. Good stuff. This conversation doesn't have to go very far.
I stopped by the booth. I walked into the booth and I said, "Listen,
Yeah, 1-0.
we've been having the stars come in. Anyways, it's done. Let's get back to the game.
Sure.
Guys.
Sorry.
Well, go for it.
One more thing that we should get into. We talked about that was technically a successful penalty kill, but right now the Jets' power play is hurting them. I mean, in a game where the Vezina Trophy winner got bowled over, resulting in a minor penalty, the Jets' inability to cash in on that power play was costly. They're now 1 for their last 18. This was a power play that was rolling along, I think, 3rd or 4th in the NHL. It's dropped to the middle of the pack, and there weren't that many dangerous scoring chances right now. I think it's gotten to be a little bit too static. They've tried a couple of adjustments, but overall, the power play is letting the Jets down. It let them down on the 4-minute power play in Edmonton, and it let them down again tonight. So that's something that needs to improve. I thought there were times during the game where Sean, we've talked about the Scheifele line and how effective they've been. They had some good pushes for sure, but in the third period, the Jets didn't really have much of a push at all, and was a surprise for us, given how often they found their ability to stay in the game and then make that push to kind of get the equalizers. So those are two things that stood out for me.
Pittsburgh started to turn the game in the second period, and then when they got that goal early in the third, I think it was a real signal from them that they were going to try and finish that road trip 3-0. They got a good first period from their goalie that gave them a chance to take all 3 games on that trip. And they've got enough of a team there, and they're well coached enough that by the time they got a little momentum at the end of the second and got going to start the third, they really saw that they had a chance to get 6 points to go home with. And I thought they played really well in the third period.
I thought they kind of took over the game, but I don't know. I was wondering about the Jets' push. It seemed a little bit like, they seem like that guy that walks into a fight just swinging right out of the bell and then kind of ran out of gas. I don't know about you guys. It seemed like that was the issue, but I'm going to try and bring in Leah here again, see if she can give us our... Leah, are you hearing us now?
I
Do you hear us?
you.
Good
Excellent.
news. Good
We
news.
pulled it off.
Okay,
Yeah,
yeah, look at I'm on my phone now, so I'm not professional like you guys. My
Turn
screen
it this
is
way.
filled.
Turn it
Okay.
this way like that.
There
There
you
we go. Perfect.
It's like
Listen.
magic.
Listen, Leah, it is not a Kenny and Renny show without many, many technical issues going wrong. So you're just you are contributing to the theme of the show, and we absolutely love it. How are you doing tonight?
That's all I want to do. I just want to contribute. Even if it's like 4th line minutes, that's all I want to do.
Team player. Team
Yes.
player, Hexy.
I just love this. I love my 3 boys. This is so nice to see all of you. Mitch, it's so fabulous to see you. It's been so long. It's
I
just
thought
so
I'd
nice
dress
to
up
see
for you tonight, Leah.
I love it. I love the purple
Well-
tie.
Wore my best T-shirt and Hockey Fights Cancer tie.
I know. You guys
Good
are all so
stuff.
professional. I came home and got in my jogging suit immediately as soon as I walked through the door.
You have a driving suit? Ken
No,
changes
jogging
into his
suit.
Oh,
Jogging
okay.
suit.
Okay. I was going to
She
say
put on a
Ken.
Formula One outfit when she got
Ken's
home.
got a separate suit that he drives to the rink in, and then he puts the real one on.
Oh, yeah.
afterwards. It's good. Leah, what's your takeaway from tonight's game?
Guys, honestly, just from a perspective of calling it, and Mitch would understand this as well, it was a really hard game, I felt, to call because it was just so tight checking, and, there really wasn't a lot of flow to the game, and I think that reflected in the score, especially for the Jets. They just couldn't seem to get anything going, and I thought, though, really give credit to Pittsburgh. It wasn't an exciting game, but they got it done on the road, and they escaped Canada with 3 straight wins, which I just know is massive for them where they are right now, but I don't know about you guys. I just felt like the Jets were sleepy, and I really wasn't expecting that considering they had a couple days off, and it just didn't feel like they were there. I mean, Hellebuck held them in there for a bit, some fabulous saves, but I don't know. I just was expecting more.
Yeah,
I can see that.
It was a strange
Okay.
game. The Penguins barely had any chances, but out of their first 3 shots, 2 of them were incredibly high danger. Crosby with the backdoor play, and then, the play in the second period where Hellebuck had to rob Gensel with the reverse 2-pad. Mitch, what did you think of the reverse 2-pad stack as the goaltender on the panel?
Hey, whatever it takes. That's what I think of that. That was probably a little Ron Hextall inspired.
Well, Ron was in the building. I'm sure he didn't enjoy it quite as much considering which goal he made the save.
Yeah,
Probably
no,
not.
it's
But there's...
sorry, go ahead.
No, that's fine.
I was just going to comment about, I had a chance to just, quickly chat with Ron today, just to, I think a lot of people know I'm a family member of his. We're cousins, and I hadn't seen him since, honestly, the pre-pandemic. Like so many of our families, we've been separated. And Brian Burke was there as well, and it was just interesting to hear what they had to say, especially about Jari and just the team and the fact that, everybody has to realize this was only their 4th game since they've got healthy. They're still missing 71 and Evgeny Malkin. But, I mean, they had $31 million out of their lineup for the majority of the season. Like, if you think about it that way, like, when Ron said that to me, I was like, oh, my goodness. Like, that's a lot. Like, that's a lot
like
of
not
key
having
players,
Sean on the
right?
show.
Yeah, exactly.
Mitch, you could have at least waited till I was gone. You could have waited until I was gone for that one, bud.
Oh, that was good.
So it is interesting because I was watching that. So I don't know how you felt about this. And Leah, I remember being down covering a game right around. It was on the trip Andrew Ladd got traded. I believe the next game after
Dallas.
that, you were sidelining one of the
in
Hockey Night in
Pittsburgh.
Canada games.
Yeah,
in
I
Pittsburgh,
think,
exactly.
It was in Pittsburgh. Yeah, it was a matinee game. Yeah.
So you will have seen your fill of Sidney Crosby over the years. And guys, you can hop in on this as well. But I was up in the press box watching, and I know that he's been out of the lineup for a bit. But that first period was the first time I ever saw him look human. Like, he didn't stand out to me. He just seemed to be another guy on the ice. But you could see as the game wore on, I know he didn't factor too much into the scoring, But as the game wore on, as they got the lead, you just saw him making the right decisions all the time, getting that puck possession. And I don't know if everyone else saw that. He's probably not where we would expect him to be, or what we know he's capable of. Where would you guys see his game at this stage?
Yeah, I'll start. For me, it's so odd. I was looking at the Hockey DB page today, and when you see Crosby, age 34, it's such a, for me, I still see 17-year-old Sidney Crosby here with the World Junior Camp. I mean, it's such a strange development. But, I mean, I agree. I thought there were times where he didn't look like he had that same explosive stride that we're used to seeing. And, I mean, when you're coming back from injury, that's usually the thing that takes the longest to get back. But I think he does such a good job of being in the right place. And the one thing that stood out for me, and in talking with Mike Sullivan before the game, I asked him specifically because of the parallels between the Jets and Penguins both being without their captain. I talked with him about what the impact has on the culture building and the identity building, and he talked about how important a voice that Sidney Crosby is. He's sort of like that on-ice general, and you saw that with this team as they got better as the game went on. I mean, look at Gensel, another like he had 8 shots on net. Yes, he was public enemy number 1 for bowling over Connor Hellebuck, but he had an effective game, and then lo and behold, there's the guy who gets the chip from Jeff Carter and gets the empty netter. And man, honestly, how many people weren't holding their breath in the building when you saw Mark Scheifele being the chaser in that situation? And Gensel puts the brakes on.
Doesn't that just put an end to any discussion about whether Mark Scheifele was trying to prevent Jake Evans from scoring a goal or not? Or like,
no, I think that shows that he got suspended for finishing the hit last time, so he made sure he was going to try to defend the goal as best he could.
That's what I'm saying. What happened tonight is what you do when you're trying to stop a goal. What happened in the playoffs was not trying to stop a goal.
Right. I also mean I think it had more to do with the deterrent of having the 4-game suspension.
Yeah. Well, whatever. No? Okay, but I'm just saying.
Maybe we're saying the same thing.
Make the case that you know how you defend an empty net when you're a forward coming back and there's a wraparound. That looked like a guy trying to stop a goal to me tonight.
Let's go back to Crosby. Sorry, go around the horn.
Happened, yeah. Mitch, take us to where you think Crosby's game is right now. Because I'll be honest, when I was watching, there was so much thought in my head with Sullivan in the building and Andrew Kopp trying to impress him, and Jake Gensel's in there, Connor Hellebuck. There was a whole bunch of Americans who are going to be on that team there tonight. So I was thinking Olympics, and I don't know. I was thinking about Sidney Crosby. We all know he's going to be on the team, but I was looking at that first period, and like I said, it's the first time he's looked human to me. And I was thinking, boy, oh boy, I wonder if he's going to get up to speed. But I do agree with Ken. He got better as the game wore on. What did you see, Mitch?
Well, let's be fair. We're talking about Sidney Crosby, one of the great players of all time, who's gone through wrist surgery and being sidelined by COVID and hardly played this year. So if he doesn't look like he does when he's at his best, that should be of no surprise to anyone. I mean, he's clearly a human being, and it is going to take him some time to get to where he normally is. But I don't doubt that that's coming with every game. And I do think, though, it is really worth recognizing what these guys go through when they get COVID. And it's no automatic thing that, okay, they've served their days and now everything's fine, they're going to go back to normal. We still see players talking about how they don't feel quite right, how it takes some time. So, I know you guys aren't jumping to any negative conclusions with respect to Sidney Crosby, but for me, it's not a matter of if, but when, we see the 87 that we know, who can be a dominant player. And I like Ken's point about, being that he's a coach. He's a coach on the bench. He's a coach in the dressing room. He's a coach at practice, on the bus. Everywhere he is, he makes those players around him better by the way he prepares himself, by the way he handles himself. So even when he's not at his very best in terms of execution or maybe some of the timing things, he's making the team better and the players around him are better. And I don't think that's just a cliche. Anybody on that team would probably tell you that.
Leah, what are you hearing at all in regards to Sidney Crosby and what it's going to take for him to get his game up to where he would expect it to be?
So I don't mind saying this because I think, there's so many people in the world who have had it, but I did have COVID. I got COVID last November, and I can speak, very, truthfully, and I feel like I didn't have that bad of a case. I was symptomatic. It was like clockwork. I got it 72 hours later. I had a dry cough, and the next day I felt like a bus had hit me, and I could barely get out of bed. And that's how I felt for 3 to 4 days, and I had massive chills where I couldn't warm up. So what I did also notice was it took me about 2 to 3 weeks before the fatigue really went away, where I would just be doing normal things like working, and I'd have to go have a nap midday because my body wasn't there. And I would say I didn't get it partially. It didn't affect my lungs. It just felt like a really, really bad flu, but it took me down. So I can't imagine coming back as an athlete and having to play within 2 weeks. That's incredible to me. And the fact that, to your point about the wrist surgery, which he says has been a nagging injury now for 7 years, it happened after the Sochi Games. But what I really noticed was he was quiet, early on. But what I really noticed towards the end of the games is how many draws he was taking, and important draws in the attacking zone and the defensive zone. And I think that really speaks to Crosby's, even with that wrist still healing, he's in there for those important face-offs in a 1-goal game. And, I have no doubt by the time Olympics roll around, that he'll be exactly where he needs to be, which we all need to admit could be a little different this time around. I mean, everything is changing. We have new players coming into the mix. He might not need to be the golden goal anymore. We have some other sensational players that can take on that role. So Sid might, to your point, he's like a coach out there. He could be doing a lot of different things for this Olympic team. But, Sidney Crosby, and a big reason I wanted to call this game when I got the call was because you don't say no to calling Crosby. So that was kind of how I felt.
Great take on all fronts. Hey, I love this question.
Sean, look at this. Here, hang on. You got to give her the welcome. I don't think Leah knows about the welcome here. I mean, last time Sam's scarf. Yeah, but she didn't see it.
The welcome? What was
Explain
the welcome?
it then, Ken.
Sean, sorry, Leah. So when our guests come on, they quickly have this is a nod to you. Leah's wine glass has been created as one of the users in the chat room. Last time we had Sam Cosentino.
He's going in the shot because I keep going to reach for it to take a sip, and then I'm trying to behave myself. I thought the boys finally asked me on. I better behave myself.
It's okay. Sammy Cos had 2 Bud Heavies on the last show, so you're in good company there for sure. So there's the welcome. on to the real part of the show.
You guys need an adjusted version, an adapted version of the band intro from Saturday Night Live, where you go, "Ladies and gentlemen, the welcome."
Yeah, exactly. There you go. And we had Harn Ryan's beard was also created, and it's part of the fun.
Oh,
good job by the chat room.
It is, Leah. I wanted to bring this in. I love when people just hit the nail on the head. But Tico and Paulie wants to know, what would your cousin have done after he was run the way Helbig was?
Is Tico and Paulie Crystal?
I love this question.
Mike, I'm sorry Jake Gensel wouldn't be alive. That's pretty much it. I mean, when I was calling that tonight, I was like, whoa! And I thought it was going to be mayhem. And it just, and that's such a great question. And, I should have, that would have been great if we had Ron here on post game to ask him what would have happened. But I think we all know what would have happened. He would have lost his freaking mind.
Yeah.
And he would have been out of his net with, his gloves tossed and going chasing Gensel around the ice.
Gensel would have been introduced to his friend Vic and his brother Cooper.
There you go.
I've been wanting to tell this story for a while. So I was doing a Hockey Night in Canada game a while back, and I was in between the benches, hopped off the benches and was walking by. And as I'm going by, Connor Hellebuck's sitting on the bench, and he gives me the head nod and starts talking to me. So I turn, and I'm full on in game mode. So my brain is full of stats, and we're doing all these stories that are coming up in the game. And one of the stories we were doing, it was that year that we were doing there was just a whole bunch of Jets hometown hockey games. And Connor Hellebuck's record on the show was he was 7-0 and had allowed 3 goals over the 7 games. He was just rocking it. So I kind of turned and started talking to him about the stories that we were doing. And I kept telling him about the shutouts that he'd had. Before the game, I kept talking to him and saying shutout over and over and over again. And as I'm doing it, I've got the mic on so everyone in the truck can hear me. And Gary Galley is calling the game. He's doing color, and he's right behind me. And he's like, "What are you doing? What are you doing?" And so after the game, he's never let it down for me that I was sitting there before this NHL goaltender is about to head into a game, and I've said shutout about 4 or 5 times. And he would never let it down. And he was like, "Do you know if that was Ron Hextall and you would have done that, he would have calmly reached for his stick and 2-handed you right square over the head with it, just boom." And in that moment, I was very happy that Connor Hellebuck was an understanding guy. I went to him after the game and apologized profusely, saying like, I don't know what got into me. I've played hockey. I know you don't say shutout to a goaltender during a game or before a game. Anyways, I thought it was funny that the standard of your cousin came up of what he would have done to me in that moment was absolutely hilarious.
Yeah, and
You know what?
Gavin,
If we're gonna talk about Ron Hextall, I have to say that I was at the 7th
I
game
need a drink. We're going to talk
at
about
the
it.
'87 Stanley Cup Final in Edmonton. I was a university student at the U of A, and I went to the 7th game of the Stanley Cup Final with all my allowance saved up. And I could tell you, 27 for Phil, he stopped a lot of pucks too. He didn't just run around whacking people. Conn Smythe and a losing cause was pretty impressive.
Yeah, it's funny, Mitch, because my dad was actually at that game along with my Uncle Brian, Ron's dad. So my dad went to Edmonton for that game, and he still has the ticket from the Game 7. And I remember watching that game as a little girl. I was living in Flin Flon, Manitoba. My mom, my sister, and I, Game 7 against Gretzky's Oilers, and what a series that was in '87, and sitting in my basement, and the Flyers scored first. And I remember how excited we were, and then they lost, and I was in tears, and it was just, that was such a run there. But what a game to be at, because I still think back to that Game 7 in my lifetime, and obviously it meant a little bit more to me, but I still think that's one of the greatest Stanley Cup series I've seen.
Yeah,
Leah, well, we're totally devolving away from the game here, but Leah, which of your relatives played hockey at UND, at University of North Dakota?
My Uncle Denny played there. He actually was the first member of UND to ever be drafted into the NHL, and then after that, Ron's son played there, Brett.
Okay, so he's your uncle, did you say?
Yeah, my Uncle Denny, yeah.
Okay, so I always heard this story. My dad, who passed away a number of years ago, went to UND. I guess they were friends. When I was young, he'd always bring up the fact that a relative of Ron's, and I don't know, we've worked in the industry, but really haven't run into each other over the 10 years. I've always wanted to tell you that story, but it was interesting. My dad and your uncle were friends way back in like the 60s or something like that. Always wanted to bring that up. Anyways, let's get back to the game and start talking about that. Ken, I want you to start off with this and take this plane out for a ride. What's going on with the Jets and their offense?
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, obviously the power play struggles are part of that, but they're not getting to the tough areas. I mean, it's so interesting. The home game against Edmonton, they won 5-2. It looked like they were doing all the right things. They had their speed game, they had their transition game, they had their rush game, but they weren't just living and dying off the rush game. They had all these cycle shifts where they were able to generate. They're getting shots from the point, traffic, all of that. And today they almost had none of it. I mean, yes, they had a Kyle Connor breakaway that, he went to the backhand to go backhand, forehand, shelf like he's done several times. Puck rolls off his stick, he bobbles it and just wrists it. I love that Connor said after the game, 9 times out of 10, I just bury that. I love the fact that it didn't matter one bit to him. You think about people maybe lacking confidence if you only get 1 or 2 chances every few games. Kyle Connor's like, I'm going to get a breakaway in the next 2 games, and I'm going to bury it. I have no concerns. But the Jets aren't generating enough. I mean, I thought that first period, as Mitch mentioned, tons of zone time, tons of offense, a few chances from the slot, but not enough. Not enough high danger. In the first, fine, but after that, they didn't generate enough. Their speed game was kind of off a little bit, and honestly, there were the Yevgeny Svechnikov sneak attack was one of their most dangerous plays, and that's not how the Jets are. They're a team that can get to the high slot with regularity. They just didn't do it enough tonight.
And to your point, Kenny, one of the things that I just noticed was that Jari was letting a lot of rebounds out. There was a lot of second opportunities, and they just didn't have anyone in position in there to create from there. And for this Jets team that's built to be able to go to the hard areas, I was kind of shocked because there was a lot of rebounds, especially in that second period.
Isn't that, Mitch, though, what this Jets team looks like when they seem to struggle offensively? Is that they kind of get, my take on this is they quite often, they're so capable on the outside and finding those seams and cross ice passing. I feel like they get a little bit too involved with that. And when things go dry, the one thing that seems to take them a little longer to figure out than other teams is just go to the net, jam it to the net, get it in there. Isn't what we saw tonight kind of what we see from the Jets when they are getting a little ineffective?
Yeah, I would agree with that. And for me in the first period when the Jets controlled possession and dominated in shots and had more high danger chances than Pittsburgh, it stood out to me how easy it was for the Jets to get exits. They came out of their zone so clean, so frequently. They had all kinds of speed through the neutral zone. And it looked like Pittsburgh was just going to sit back and try and absorb it, which was odd to me. I don't know if Pittsburgh was a little sluggish coming off the 2 road games prior to this one or what it was, but I thought that it was shockingly clear that the Jets could just come out of their zone at will in that first period, and with, you know, not only possession but speed, and they came in and set up, and I think when the game got tighter checking in the second period after the Penguins regrouped, it was a different assignment for the Jets, and as you say, then the mindset has to change. Then you got to roll up your sleeves and find ways to get to those places, and maybe that's a hard adjustment when it's going pretty smoothly for 20-25 minutes, you know.
The other part too, Sean, the puck support and the defensive support. In the third period, it seems like there was always a second Penguins player on the puck, but not cheating on the puck on the defensive side, which prevented the Jets from getting anything going. And that is a credit to the way that the Penguins, Mitch, you said it, they knew that they had a poor first. They kind of stayed around long enough, and then they sniffed those fifth and sixth points, and they really buckled down defensively. I thought Brian Dumoulin's been playing great since he's been back in the lineup. He's one of those guys, you don't notice him on the stat sheet, but he's really that guy who kind of is the glue to that defense core. I love Brian Dumoulin's game overall, and just that support. The Jets didn't have enough of it. They weren't supporting.
What about minutes, Weber? Did you notice Pittsburgh down the lineup? Because it looked like we were seeing a lot of guys like Rodriguez and Heinen as the game went on. They were dangerous. I mean, how many chances? Leah, how many times did you say Evan Rodriguez in the third period?
Yeah, the third period is where I really noticed it, and obviously Heinen got a goal, but that's when they were starting to hum, and then after that, they were out there a lot. I would actually say I think that line was one of the most played in the third period. It felt like, at least by the amount of times I was saying their names. Right?
Yeah, it seemed like it, you know, and I think that says a lot about a team when they're at the end of a road trip and they can go down the lineup like that and get minutes and get important contributions. That's something Pittsburgh, I think, will probably feel pretty good about looking ahead as they try to get back in the mix there in the Metro.
Okay, well, sorry to interrupt. I'm going to take off. You guys have got this ship in good hands. I'm off to Grand Forks. I will see those mighty UND players on Saturday night at the end of this road trip. Going to be in Columbus with Sean. Going to be in Minnesota for the afternoon matinee, and then we'll be watching 2021 Jets first rounder Chaz Lucius suit up against the UND Fighting Hawks. So, and then catch the 9 o'clock start in Calgary from the hotel. So, Hexy, congrats. I know it was a special night for you calling that game here. Like I told you before, we know a lot of people would have been proud for you tonight, especially on a special day like this. And one last thing I want to say too, Josh Morrissey, he's been on our show, and he's just such an incredible human being. The way that the grace with which he handled this morning's questions about his father and what he did in honoring him wearing that purple velvet suit tonight is to be applauded. And just wanted to sneak that in before I roll out here. And enjoy the rest of the show, guys. Thanks for steering the ship, Sean, and I will see you at dinner tomorrow night.
You bet. Great. Hey, am I invited this time? You invited me to dinner?
Oh,
just bring your wallet.
Stop. Just stop.
One more. I had to get one
more shot for the road. Hey, just before I could not defend I appreciate it.
I just want to make sure you're not leaving because I interrupted you twice, Kenny.
No, Mitch. I'm okay with that. You're just getting me back for when I did color with you. I know what it's like. Right Have a great night, guys. Thanks again. I might tune in on the way by. Cheers. Thanks.
Safe travels. See you later. One thing I wanted to bring up was, so last game they were playing the Vancouver Canucks. I didn't think that the Jets had a lot of juice in that game, but you could say they pulled it, they made it close. And one of the reasons why, and I tweeted this out before, and what I noticed with the Jets is the worst thing you can do against the Jets is sit on a lead against them. As soon as you do that, as soon as you get the puck and kind of just flip it down the ice, to me, all that is against the Jets is it's a turnover, and you're just giving them possession back, and you keep giving the Jets possession, they're going to burn you. That's one thing that I thought, hey, if you want to know what the Pittsburgh Penguins have been doing well the last couple of games where they keep shutting teams out, is they didn't stop, I thought, for that entire game. They kept going down the ice, trying to take back possession, not allowing the Jets to play with the puck. Hexy, did you see something similar?
Yeah, I mean, one of the things I noticed about Pittsburgh early on in the game is that they would kind of lift the puck in, and it wasn't even a dump in. They would actually really elevate it and lift it in, and then they'd give chase. I didn't notice that. It's like they adjusted. I didn't notice it as much, throughout the game. It's like they understood, no, we're going to have to carry this in because it wasn't being effective against this Jets team that was getting back on it. So, but it was amazing to me at how much they were able to stifle the Jets. in that third period. I mean, I didn't think the Jets had any chance after they got down to score because Pittsburgh just went into mode, and I was like, they couldn't even get through. So, I mean, I don't know. I just, I know this might be not maybe the right answer to the question, but I just, coming into this game, I don't get to see the Jets play as much as I used to because, I'm away in the States. But, considering where their record is at, considering what they have done, the wins that they've put together, the fact that I've heard from multiple people on the, Andrew Kopp was saying it, Marisa said it, this feels like 17-18, and we know how special that year was. I really, when I saw them play tonight, I didn't feel like it was much different than last season. And I guess I was just expecting so much more because, it's the first time I've seen them live this year, not on television, and just with everything that's been done. And it's not to say that they're not playing better, but I just thought, this is Pittsburgh coming in. This is a Pittsburgh team that's still finding its legs. Like, this is a game they should have won, especially after going winless in 2 on the road. And I don't know, I was just kind of disappointed. That's really about it. And I just thought Pittsburgh found a way to win, and that's what you do on the road when you're closing out a trip. And that shows why. And Stanley Cup bredness that they have still, even though they have different players, that culture is still there about how they play.
There's two times in the game that stood out to me as you talk about that. One is the play after the penalty kill in the second period where the Jets finally got a big penalty kill. They get back to 5-on-5. And Pittsburgh picks the puck up in the neutral zone and just carries it in with speed, backs the Jets up, scores a goal, and goes up 2-1. And I'm thinking, you worked that hard to kill a penalty, and then you let that happen. But the flip side of that is obviously Pittsburgh took the initiative, saw the moment, and backed the Jets up. The other thing is what I talked about a little bit earlier on the program, which was in the third period when Pittsburgh did shoot one in. They had the cross-ice shoot-in that led to the goal that the fourth line scored. And I thought that was really interesting because the diagonal shoot-in was, I think it was Ruedel, the guy who shot it in, Chad Ruedel. And then they picked the puck up in the corner. Yeah, it was almost, it was, maybe you wouldn't call it a set play, but there was clearly an understanding on the shoot-in. The guy on the opposite side was going after it, as soon as the puck left the guy's stick. And I just thought that showed something too, like that awareness of recognizing the moment and the execution, and then beating the Jets to the front of the net. I just thought that when the game was on the line and the key plays needed to be made, Pittsburgh had what it took to make those key plays tonight. And, that's a credit to them as much as it is, the Jets maybe not being at their very best. Going back to the first period for the Jets, for me, I just think that when they didn't extend the lead, they allowed Pittsburgh to come back into the game.
Well, that's what Paul Maurice used to talk about. He used to say that it's not so much losing the lead, it's not extending the lead to a point where you kind of put your throat on the opposition. That seemed to be the case, although I wonder, though, because the Jets have been playing a lot of grinded out games this year. I mean, they should be comfortable in that environment from what we've seen. I
don't think they're uncomfortable. I just think when you allow it to become a 50-50 game, you can lose, right?
Well, but allow it to become a 50-50 game. I think Pittsburgh really kind of showed who they are, and actually makes a great argument, right? All the guys who were missing from the lineup, all the stuff they've come through. I went back and I was looking through, because they started the season super, super hot. We were thinking, okay, are the Pittsburgh Penguins back? And then they went on a little bit of a slide there. Now they look like they're coming back a little bit. But the one thing you could see is that team is on the same page when they play, right? And that team, it felt like if you can keep on them and push on them, that's how you beat that team. And the Jets looked like they were doing that in the first, and then either ran out of gas or there were adjustments to be made. Leah, did you see anything? I mean, maybe this is a coaching, maybe this was a chess match from behind the bench. Did you see anything that Pittsburgh did that maybe would have turned the tide in this game systematically?
Like personally, I really didn't. I thought the same personnel was being deployed until that third period, to Mitch's point. That's when the fourth line kind of started to be rewarded with more ice time because they were being effective when they were out there and getting some opportunities. But I mean, I just kind of saw it being the same thing. The only thing I did notice is, like I said, in that first period, we saw them lifting it up and into the zone a lot. And then it just seemed like instead they were like, no, we're going to carry the puck in. We're going to do the long lead pass up. I have to say the Letang and Dumoulin combination, like they are so good on that first pass, like really giving them. There's a lot of times where that pass was coming from the Pittsburgh end, and the Jets almost were seemed a little behind the play because that they would spot the guys up there quickly. and they'd be gone. And it didn't always turn into a play by Pittsburgh, but a lot of times it gave them that zone entry where it caught the Jets off balance. And that was one thing that I felt that the defense of Pittsburgh was better at doing than the Jets are doing. A lot of their passes from their zone are little chips off the wall that only get to neutral ice. Pittsburgh had those beautiful long ups, which I think really helps effectively, especially when you're hitting the stick of it like a Sidney Crosby.
Yeah, I had forgot about. So I covered the Penguins on both of their cup runs for a number of those series. Letang was missing 1 year, injured, but I forgot the year that he was there. The simplicity of his game, he gets the puck and he skates it until you don't let him skate anymore, and then he just passes it to the guy you abandoned to address him. And it's just such a simple game. And I was watching again tonight. I don't think there's anyone who looks calmer under pressure on the back end in the NHL than Chris Letang does. And it was a reminder of, again, to your point, Leah, just how much talent remains on this team and some of the things that have happened in the last couple of years. We know they looked great before their goaltending let them down last year. Now that their goaltending is looking good, there's reason to be scared of that team. And again, I don't want to let it give a pass to the Jets, but this wasn't just a chump team that they were playing. This was a really good team and a really good test for the Winnipeg Jets, and one that I think, it's one they'd like to have back. We do know this for sure, Mitch. Paul Maurice had said at the end of the game, it was up in the air going into the third period. He did not like the Jets' third period, and it's not often Paul Maurice says that. It's their third straight loss. This is basically he's liked their previous 8 periods. That's the first one that he really hasn't liked. Have you seen something similar?
Yeah, well, I mean, look at the game in Edmonton. I mean, they had a million shots in Edmonton, could easily have won that game, and it was a high-intensity, very good game between two very good teams. The next night, they're a little bit out of gas, but they outshot the Canucks pretty badly and could have won that game, with a bounce here or there. So there's reason to think those are reasonably played games. But then tonight, after the first period, as we said, things changed. And by the time the third period came around, Pittsburgh was playing its game, imposing its game on the Jets at home. When the Jets get a chance to come home and play one before going on the road, and the Penguins are at the end of a long trip, if I'm the coach, that probably doesn't sit very well, and he's not going to let that go without mention and about paying attention to that. So I would agree with that. I would see that. I also want to say something if I have the opportunity with Leah here, which is you're asking Leah a lot of questions about very fine details about things that happened in the game, and I'd like to speak a little bit, if I can, for play-by-play announcers, is to say we follow the puck around the ice.
Yeah.
So a lot of times things are happening in areas outside of where that puck is that we don't necessarily pick up on. There's a lot of subtleties. That's why the color commentator is so valuable. That's why the replays mean so much, because the play-by-play announcer spends a lot of time in that area right around the puck, much like a goalie would. And so your ability to make some of these analytical statements is somewhat limited.
For sure.
And I've had times where people have said to me after the game, hey, remember in the second period when such and such happened? And you go, no, because that's the nature of the gig. You kind of have the blinders on a little bit, right? Like, not entirely. And you have a color person and you're looking at replays and all that stuff. But I want to just tip my cap to Hexie and say, nice job to pick up on all those things when you're following the puck around.
Well, hey, I was going to say it. What I kept picking up on here was the real fine points of the game that you kept addressing. And believe me, Mitch, I'm glad you brought that up, because there's times I've been asking you questions, Leah, and I know that they're big asks, right? Like, I'm asking you stuff systematically. I'm asking you all this stuff. Yeah. They're big asks because I know what your role is. And I want to say I'm asking them because you seem so unbelievably attentive to the things going on in the game. I just want more. I want more. Let's see what else we got.
I'll be honest. You were starting. I thought maybe get a little bit aggressive on some of the questions, son. I was going to go Berkey on you here. So,
there you go. There you go.
You're gonna have to.
You couldn't have gone Burke.
It's about to arrive, and this is not a plug. It's just it is. So I'm gonna have to sign off here now. And of course, I don't want to talk anymore. You guys made me sound like I was so smart tonight, so I feel like I've done pretty good. But
I think you showed it yourself.
I think you did pretty good. All right.
Yeah. I'm going to. Well, then let's just do this. And Mitch, I'll hit you with one last question because I should be going out. I've got an early morning plane. But Leah, it was thank you so much for joining us. It was awesome. We love to do this. It's just another way for our audience to get at the people who are on our broadcast and thank them for the job that they did and point out the stuff that they did great. And I just want to point out the stuff that you did phenomenally on the show afterwards. You picked up such great stuff. I like to tease Ken, but I will say this. If you and I were as good of friends as Ken and you are, I would have had you on the show way earlier than this,
Well,
Leah.
there
So
you
it's
go.
great to finally have you.
Weaver. Everything's Weaver's fault. I've been saying that for a
Totally.
decade. I mean,
Totally.
whenever
Exactly.
we get, it's Weaver. I'm sorry. It's
She
Weaver.
gets it.
So, yeah.
See, she gets it. Finally, a
Yeah.
kindred
Well,
spirit who
I will,
understands what I'm going through.
Well, we'll see if Weaver, because I'm calling next Monday's game for Sportsnet. That one was actually on my schedule because this one was more of a pinch hitting one. I will be at the rink again, so hopefully I'll get to run into you guys. But it's just a pleasure to be here and see your faces and just talk a little hockey. And it's nice to be talking Winnipeg Jets again because I haven't. The American audience doesn't talk about them as much as we do up here. So yeah,
Excellent.
but they'll learn in the playoffs hopefully. So there we go.
Yeah, you learn them for us. So
I
great
will.
job. Great
I
job. And you know what? If you want to hop on with us next Monday, I'm extending the invite right now. No pressure. But if you want to hop on,
we know Weaver won't. So there you
There-
go. But listen, boys,
There
thank
we
you
go.
so much
There
and
we go.
safe travel, Sean. Really
Yeah.
appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay,
Talk to you
we'll see
later.
guys.
Great job
See you later.
tonight.
Bye.
Mitchie, last thing I'm going to ask you here, and I want to make sure I do it because it's been a hot topic in the chat room here. But there's been a lot of conversation about the way that the top six is constructed, especially since Blake Wheeler moved up. Blake Wheeler moves up onto that top line, which had been going at a phenomenal pace. He's got 1 assist on an empty net goal in 4 games. What are you seeing from the team when those lines were moved around, and what's your take on the construction? Because I do think that at some point the Jets have kind of shifted from a mindset of having 3 top lines that have the potential to score to kind of loading up on the top 2. And it hasn't necessarily had the result that I think Paul Maurice was going to expect, which was an explosion by the top 2 lines to kind of maybe spell off the depth that they would be looking for in scoring. What have you seen?
Well, I guess I'll confess and say I'm going to draw on some numbers to tell you what I think, because the numbers, the numbers round out what you see with your eyes. I think I'm not an eye test guy, and I'm not a numbers guy. I think they both matter, and my eye tells me that Blake Wheeler hasn't found his game just yet. I think the wrong word is conditioning, but maybe just health. Given what he's been through, I would never suggest that Blake Wheeler was not in shape, because Blake Wheeler's Blake Wheeler, and he's renowned for that. Sure, time has ticked on, and he's not as young as he used to be. But I guess what I'm saying is, when I watch Blake Wheeler playing on the line with Dubois and Connor, I feel like it doesn't quite fit right now. That he doesn't match the level of the other 2 players at the moment. And I want to be clear, I'm saying at the moment. But the numbers that I've come across, and I think Murat Atesh addressed this in The Athletic, talking about the numbers with Wheeler on that line. If I understand correctly what I saw just briefly in looking at that article, the underlying numbers are quite good with Blake Wheeler on that line. They get more shots and they get more good chances when Wheeler is on that line with Dubois and Connor than when Svechnikov was playing on that line. So if you believe that the numbers will eventually result in goals, then it would seem to some extent, using a cliche, that's a matter of time. If Wheeler continues on that line, they continue to get shots and chances, that line will start to be very productive. On the other hand, if you liked what you saw with Svechnikov there, you're going to say, I don't see the same energy. I don't see the physical part. I feel like the balance is off in the lines. I wonder how long they can go if the third line isn't as good as it used to be. Those sorts of things. So what I think I see in Paul Maurice, and he's talked about it a little bit recently with the penalty kill, when he was quizzed about the penalty kill numbers being so low. And he said, well, we only gave up 3 power play goals over an 11-game stretch. It was the beginning of the year, and we gave up 10 in 5 games. That's got us into so much trouble. Paul Maurice has been around long enough to have that gut feel, that that instinct for saying, I know it doesn't look great right now, but I'm going to give it the time it needs to be great because I think I see something there. I think I understand something there. That's the way he's looking at the penalty kill to some extent. I'm sure he's looking at that power play the same way to some extent. People get impatient. They want results. But I think a quality coach will say, you got to know when to make the moves and you got to know when to let things work out. And so I think right now he's erring on the side of letting things work out with 26 playing with 80 and 81. But I think there will be concerns if it goes on as it is. And I think I understand why people like the chemistry with Dubois and Svechnikov and the energy and the forechecking and all of that stuff. So I get why they're doing what they're doing. They want to understand their team better. I think it can work the way that it is. It might need more time. But how long do you let it go? That's the big question. And it'll be interesting to see, how this plays out because Blake Wheeler is the franchise all-time leading scorer. He's the captain of the team. He runs the room, and you want him happy and feeling good.
Yeah. I think for me, the one thing I'd say about this, and someone had made the comment earlier on, there's been so much in the way of Paul Maurice line blending. And someone made the comment in the chat room that it looks like the battery is broken on the line blender right now. I think that's the one thing is that I'll be completely honest. I had thought that after that game in Vancouver that there would be a potential chance that when the Jets showed up here and practiced on Sunday, that there'd be a little bit of a juggling of the lines because what we've seen this year is it does not take much of a slip for Paul Maurice to kind of move things around and get them going. What that tells me, I would think, is this is what Paul Maurice wants to work. Mm-hmm. And so to the point that you made, I think, and maybe it's because there's something he sees. You may have hit the nail right on the head with that he sees something there that he thinks if I just give this time, the numbers are going to bear this out and we are going to start seeing the results. And listen, this is what NHL coaches and men inside the game, this is why they get paid because they see the things inside the game that we don't. Paul Maurice saw something in. Listen, the Jets were having troubles with their penalty kill last season and turned it around at some point and went from being one of the worst penalty kills in the league to being a very, very solid penalty kill. And Paul Maurice, the one thing I'll give him credit for is he comes out and says, no, we're seeing it. We're seeing what we need to see. We're going to start getting the results. If he says that the results come, then he's been on record as saying, look, it's about to come. Just give it a second. Paul Maurice, right at the beginning of the year when we were in San Jose, talked about their penalty kill and had said, this is going to be a work in progress. It's going to take us some time. We discovered in training camp, we were like, this is going to be a problem. That's what they're working with. So, he's not BSing. He's coming out and he's telling you what their weakness is. We're addressing it. We're going to get somewhere. As a player, that's what you want to hear. You want to hear from your coach that he's got confidence, that the signs are there. That's what he's saying right now. I guess the one thing I would say is to the point that you made, when does the line blending break out? When do you take a look at it and say,
remember too, Paul Stastny's, a short time away from returning to the lineup. So I think you want to give what you have a chance to work. And then maybe if you have a vision for where Stastny fits, it solves some of the problems with respect to that third line as well,
Exactly.
So, I think that, I know Paul Maurice is more concerned about, the insights that are shared within the coaching staff and the Jets management group. He's more concerned about the feelings of his players in the room, where their heads are at, how they're feeling in terms of confidence. And he has to be accountable to them. They have to be accountable to him. So I think as much as, a fan may want them to win every single game and make every single move every night, he has to be able to look those players in the eye and say, look, I see you're working. I see it's coming. I know what you're trying to do. Let's give it a chance, So.
Well, and here's the other part of that is Paul Maurice has an idea of what his team at its most put together state would look like, right? Mm-hmm. And so this is what he's working for. That's what he's working towards. And so there's clearly a belief within Paul Maurice, and I know it's being questioned by a lot of the fan base, but there's clearly a belief with Paul Maurice that this year's Winnipeg Jets at their best are one that includes Blake Wheeler in the top 6 contributing and playing a game that Paul Maurice clearly still believes that he's capable of playing. So that is what he's trying to get to. So I know that there's a lot of people, and hey, listen, if you've been watching the show, I've been one of the guys who's been saying this. I still disagree with the idea of having broken up that top line, because I think even if you think that there's better options to go to, I think it's a bad message to send your players that you're willing to break something that's working in order to try and fix something that's broken. And that's what I think happened with, Blake Wheeler and Mark Scheifele came back. It wasn't working. So he split those two up. He puts Mark Scheifele onto the line, which I think has worked alongside Andrew Kopp and Nick Ehlers. He puts Blake Wheeler up, which has not borne fruit as of yet. But the problem with that is that line had been flying and had shown no signs of sagging. And that line gets broken up to try and get Blake Wheeler going. And it's not working. It hasn't worked so far. And the issue with that, I think, is you send messages to your players that they're, a player like Svechnikov, that they're willing to move you into a different spot, despite what you've done. You've done everything that's been asked of you, and it's still not good enough because we're going to do this. When those results don't come right away, I think it creates question marks within the lineup.
Well, so
I'm not saying that there's mutiny, but I think it's human instinct, Mitch, to say, like, why did I get moved out of this spot for this?
Yeah, it is, and I wouldn't argue that. But what I would say is, if you're talking about looking at a situation and making adjustments, you are probably going to want to see how much you can get out of Blake Wheeler, knowing what Blake Wheeler's done for you and the organization over the years, before you're going to try and be excessively committed to a Svechnikov who's come in and earned a contract in camp and been with the program for a few months. I think there's going to be, a natural instinct to say the higher end for 26 is higher than the higher end for 71. Let's put him into that slot. And also, Svechnikov's been around long enough in pro hockey to know when you come in a dressing room and see numbers written up on a board in a dressing room, you don't expect the coach to automatically leave 71 there if 26 is around, right? That's just the way the business works. Contracts play into it, seniority plays into it, all those kinds of things. You can tell your buddy on the drive home that you're pissed off because you thought you were playing pretty good, but you're not going to mope around the dressing room, and you're not going to, think you got ripped off somehow because you got bumped on a line. But, there's also an interesting point. Again, I'm going to go back to Murat and credit the article that I read where he talks about the fact there are many good lines around the league that are built around two players. And a third player is on that line that maybe not at the same level as the other two, but as a threesome, they make an effective trio. Yeah. And so while Blake Wheeler may not be the Blake Wheeler that he's been throughout his career, he's certainly a very good complementary player, able to play with players like a Dubois and Connor. And so, again, you give it a try. And again, the numbers suggest the chances are there, the shots are there. So, until the chances and shots aren't there, until, Blake Wheeler's 20 games with a goal or whatever it is, then I think you just got to say the numbers will add up, the points will come, and you'll have a happy captain and a team, a team that's able to move itself forward.
Well, you bring up a good point, Mitch, because that's the one thing, the human element is something that we just lose so often in the game, is that, managing the personalities in the dressing room and trying to keep everybody happy. I will say this, I wanted to close this point out. We take a look at it and I may say, this was working, why break it up to fix it? But back to the point about Paul Maurice having an idea of what the ideal Jets team looks like and how they are working. That's what he's working on, right? And to be honest, at this stage right now, and I mean, I don't ever want to say, like, forget about it, you're in the playoffs. It's way too early in the season. Everything is way too cramped. The Jets have to worry about making the playoffs. But the regular season, what we've learned over the years is the regular season is about getting your game right for a specific time of season. No one knows that more than the teams that have been good and made a push but fallen short in the years past. And so there's a number of teams, that was the Washington Capitals for a number of years. That was these Pittsburgh Penguins for a number of years. San Jose, all these teams that kind of get into this and they're thinking, this is what we're looking towards. is getting right. And then you get the teams like the Tampa Bay Lightning who know exactly that, right? And know it's all about building up to a certain point. So a lot of this is going to have the fact that the Winnipeg Jets, what you learned from a team like the Montreal Canadiens last season is it doesn't matter what you did throughout the regular season. If you play the way the Montreal Canadiens did and were capable of playing in the playoffs. And so that's what these teams and these coaches are embarking on. We as journalists and fans, what we're looking at is what results did you get tonight? What have you done for me lately? Well, you know what? If you go through the season and, what year was that? The 96 or 97 Red Wings, 96 Red Wings. They set a record for the most wins in a season ever and then just promptly tanked it in the playoffs.
Tampa did that with Columbus, right?
Exactly. Tearing it up throughout the regular season means absolutely nothing. You can get all these results you want, but unless you find the team that you want to be at the right time, all that is for naught. And clearly this is an effort by Paul Maurice to try and figure out what this team is and what they can be. And that probably has everything to do with what we're seeing right now in that top six. Mitch, is there anything you want to say before we close this out?
I want to say have a fantastic trip. Thanks for having me on.
Hey, anytime. I appreciate it. I know I kept you up a little bit late. I think I don't know if there's a cup of coffee hidden in the way there. You weren't flaunting it the way that Leah was her wine glass. I appreciate that.
I just held off of my warm milk and slippers. That's all.
Excellent stuff as always, Mitch. Thank you so much for coming on with us. We really appreciate it, and we love every moment we get to spend with you, as does our chat room. And once again, to our chat room, I just want to say thank you so much for your contributions to the show. And another thing, I just want to say I really appreciate the way our chat room, who a lot of you choose to spend a lot of time with us. I'm always so happy of how you treat our guests. I think it's an overwhelmingly positive experience when people can come on here and have the opportunity to interact with our chat room, who just does such a good job of, for the most part, being critical when they need to be, but keeping things positive. Makes me so proud to say that you're our audience. Thank you so much, everybody. Really appreciate it. We will see you after the game on Wednesday. I'll be part of the broadcast. And so will Sammy the Scarf Cosentino, who has asked to join us after the show. So get ready for him and the buds that he likes to bring into the pictures there. It's going to be great stuff. Thank you, everybody. We'll see you on Wednesday.